When we think of Adolf Hitler, we often picture a ruthless dictator driven by political ambition and military conquest. However, there is a lesser-known but equally fascinating aspect of his rule: his obsession with astrology and the occult. The Nazi regime was not just about brute force and propaganda. It was also deeply intertwined with mystical beliefs, secret societies, and astrological predictions. Some of Hitler's closest advisors, such as Heinrich Himmler, were devoted to researching ancient Aryan myths, esoteric symbols, and even supernatural forces. Astrology played a bizarre role in Nazi decision-making, with astrologers making predictions that influenced Hitler's strategies. At the same time, the Nazis actively suppressed occult groups that did not align with their ideology. How did these mystical beliefs shape the Third Reich? And why was Hitler so drawn to the world of the supernatural? Let's uncover the strange and unsettling connection between Hitler, astrology, and the occult. To understand Hitler's fascination with the occult, we must look at one of the most influential secret societies in Germany at the time, the Thule Society. This organization, founded in 1918, blended nationalist ideology with mystical and esoteric beliefs. It was obsessed with Aryan mythology, claiming that the German people were the descendants of a superior ancient race with hidden supernatural powers. The Thule Society's influence on Hitler was significant, though debated by historians. While there is no direct evidence that Hitler was an official member, many of his closest allies, including Rudolf Hess and Dietrich Eckart, were deeply involved. Eckart, in particular, saw Hitler as a kind of messianic figure, believing he was destined to lead Germany to greatness. Thule members dabbled in astrology, alchemy, and rune magic, all of which later appeared in Nazi symbolism and ideology. More importantly, the society played a key role in forming the German Workers' Party, which later evolved into the Nazi Party. By the time Hitler rose to power, he had already been exposed to a mix of occult ideas and radical nationalism. This early foundation would influence the Nazi regime's obsession with mystical symbols, secret knowledge, and even supernatural warfare. Astrology was more than just a passing interest in Nazi Germany. It played an active role in shaping decisions within the Third Reich. One of the most well-known astrologers associated with the regime was Karl Ernst Kraft, a Swiss astrologer who allegedly predicted an assassination attempt on Hitler in 1939. This prediction earned him the attention of high-ranking Nazis, and he was soon enlisted to provide astrological advice for the Reich. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's chief propagandist, saw astrology as a useful tool to manipulate the public. Nazi propaganda sometimes referenced astrological predictions, convincing the German people that their victories were written in the stars. Some reports even suggest that Hitler himself consulted astrological readings before making major strategic decisions, particularly during Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. However, Hitler's relationship with astrology was paradoxical. While he occasionally entertained its influence, he also grew suspicious of astrologers. After the failed assassination attempt in 1944, the Nazis cracked down on occultists, including Kraft, who was arrested and later died in a concentration camp. Despite this suppression, astrology remained a quiet but persistent influence behind the scenes, guiding decisions in ways that many historians still debate today. The Nazi regime was filled with occult symbolism, much of which was inspired by ancient mystical traditions. The most recognizable is the swastika, a symbol with deep roots in Hinduism, Buddhism, and various esoteric traditions. The Nazis repurposed it as a representation of Aryan supremacy, believing it held mystical power. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, was one of the most devoted believers in the occult. He founded the Ahnenerbe, an organization dedicated to researching Aryan origins, lost civilizations, and supernatural forces. Under Himmler's orders, SS officers took part in ritualistic ceremonies at Wewelsburg Castle, which he envisioned as the spiritual center of the Nazi movement. These rituals included pagan-inspired rites, runic magic, and attempts to tap into hidden energies. The Nazis were also obsessed with sacred relics, particularly the Holy Grail and the Spear of Destiny, which some believed granted immense power to its wielder. Expeditions were sent to Tibet and other locations to uncover evidence of an ancient superior Aryan race. While some of these ideas seem outlandish, they were taken very seriously by key figures in the Nazi hierarchy. The blend of occult beliefs with political ideology created an eerie and dangerous mix that shaped much of the regime's identity. Despite the Nazi regime's deep connection to occult beliefs, Hitler himself had a contradictory stance on mysticism. While he allowed figures like Himmler to indulge in esoteric research, he also viewed many occultists as threats to his control. By the early 1940s, Hitler began to see astrologers, fortune-tellers, and occult groups as dangerous. After the failed assassination attempt in July 1944, he ordered a crackdown on esoteric movements. The astrologers' purge led to the arrest of many mystics, including Karl Ernst Kraft. Secret societies like the Freemasons were also targeted, accused of conspiring against the Reich. This suppression reflected Hitler's growing paranoia. He feared that reliance on the occult could undermine his authority. Ironically, while denouncing these practices, his regime continued using occult symbolism and mystical ideas in propaganda. This paradox shows how deeply entangled Nazi ideology was with supernatural beliefs, even as they tried to suppress them. The Nazis didn't just embrace occultism in their symbolism, they actively sought ways to integrate mystical beliefs into their policies and military strategies. One of the clearest examples was their obsession with racial purity, which was partly influenced by occult ideas about an ancient Aryan master race. The Ahnenerbe, led by Heinrich Himmler, was tasked with proving that the Aryans were a superior godlike people whose bloodline needed to be preserved. This belief fueled the Nazis' brutal eugenics programs and racial policies. Occultism also played a role in Nazi warfare. Hitler and his inner circle were reportedly fascinated by mystical weapons and supernatural relics. Legends suggest that they sought the Spear of Destiny, believed to grant invincibility, and even conducted expeditions to Tibet to uncover secret Aryan knowledge. Some military decisions, including the timing of certain invasions, were rumored to be based on astrological calculations. One of the strangest occult-driven projects was Himmler's Wewelsburg Castle, which he envisioned as a mystical headquarters for the SS. It was designed with occult symbols, including a black sun emblem, meant to channel supernatural energies. However, despite their efforts, none of these mystical beliefs translated into real power. The Nazis' reliance on pseudoscience and mystical ideologies contributed to poor strategic decisions, such as Operation Barbarossa, which proved disastrous. In the end, their obsession with the occult only added to the irrationality and brutality of their rule. Hitler's strange obsession with astrology and the occult adds another layer to the already dark history of the Nazi regime. While he publicly distanced himself from mysticism, his closest advisors actively pursued esoteric knowledge, believing it could shape their destiny. From astrological predictions to occult symbols and secret rituals, these beliefs influenced Nazi propaganda, policies, and even military decisions. Yet, in the end, mysticism did nothing to prevent their downfall. The Nazis' reliance on supernatural ideas highlights the dangers of mixing ideology with pseudoscience. Their quest for mystical power was not only irrational, it was ultimately doomed to fail.